Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. I am here today, Happiness Hussy, coming in hot to share some boundary tips for the holidays. And I have with me today Shae Regan, who is a health and empowerment coach who loves to simplify things. So let us kick off this conversation and simplify some things around boundaries for you with these 3 tips today. Thanks for joining me, Shae. I'm really excited to dive in. Let's first kick us off with a little bit of a background on our perspective on boundaries, just so we're all on the same page about what boundaries are and aren't. And then we will dive into the 3 tips so that we can really give everybody lots of value and how that they can create a peaceful, loving, and ultimately shitstorm-free holiday season, right? That's the goal here. So
That's
welcome, welcome, welcome. I would love for you to share your perspective on boundaries, and then I will chime in with anything that I want to add to that.
Well, I think boundaries is a super important tool. It's a way to keep peace in your inner sanctum, in your space. And I think it's something that people need to really assimilate or assess themselves. I think a lot of people, if you ask them, what are boundaries to you and what are they for you, a lot of people don't really delve into, looking at what that means. Sometimes it's just what I want in my world and what I don't want in my world. And a lot of people focus on what they want, and then what they don't want comes in, they kind of deal with it a little bit. I think having an absolute no to certain types of people, certain styles that they employ is super important. So anytime you feel stressed, there's a need for a boundary. And I think that's important to recognize. If you're uncomfortable in a certain situation, you need to put down a boundary that that's not what you want in your world, and focus on the goodness of people, the good things that you want in your life. Basically see them and like manifesting, this is what I want, this is what I'll accept. And if it's anything different than that, that's not welcome. So I think it's important to really take an inventory on those things.
It's important to get to know yourself and what is and isn't in alignment for you. And this is part of the boundary setting process, because if you don't know what's for you and what's not for you, if you're not tuned into, those things that do make you feel maybe uncomfortable or stressed or upset, then how are you going to be able to communicate that with other people? So ultimately, to me, boundaries is an exercise in going inward and discovering a little bit more about who you are. And then with that information, communicating that to other people. And a lot of people have maybe some confusion about boundaries being like a wall to keep people out. And they're hard lines, like, you can't come into my world. But that's actually not true. And you don't have to be mean. You don't have to be rude. You don't even have to be unkind to deliver your boundaries, because boundaries are actually an invitation into deeper connection with you. They're not a means of excommunicating people from your lives. Now, if you communicate them clearly and well, those who are not meant to be in your life will remove themselves, because they won't be able to respect it. Now, also equally important, you can't just communicate the boundary and let that be. You have to actually uphold it with taking action when your boundary is crossed, right? So we're going to dive into today a little bit deeper into 3 reasons why you want to have boundaries and what this is going to do for you. And we're talking about the holiday season specifically, but you're going to find that these 3 tips are going to apply all year long in any interactions with other people. But it's the holidays, so we're going to tailor this conversation a little bit towards how this is going to impact your peaceful holiday season. Again, avoiding all of those shitstorms that we don't want to have. So shall we dive in, Shae, to the first key area? All right, I'm going to introduce it, and then I'm going to let you share your thoughts on this first one. Number 1, again, related to the shitstorm avoidance, we want to incorporate boundaries so that we can reduce conflict, so that we can embrace personal limits. And this is for you as much as it is for everyone else. So share your thoughts on how we can reduce our conflicts by incorporating a few boundaries into our lives.
Well, I think A lot of it is finding commonality, things that you can connect with people, that's across the board in any interaction. Um, People usually have issues when they're familiar with somebody. So Uncle Bob, who does this and talks about things that are uncomfortable for everyone, um, usually familiarity breeds a lack of taking action. And so I think it's super important to, to assess, what are you comfortable talking about? Talk about things that are, happy. I mean, it seems to be a harder thing to do anymore, but talk about things that are, going to raise the positive energy, connection, things that bring, I don't know, satisfaction to people. What are they doing in their life? What constructive things are going on? Avoiding, obviously, things about religion and politics because there's too many differentials involved with that. But, just family values as a norm. The family has been established. Talk about great grandma and what she did, and kind of reconnecting the family lines together, things like that. And then what individually that people are doing that are increasing positivity in their arena. Sometimes it's difficult because as people get older, they kind of play things over and over again. So Uncle Bob has his war stories, and nobody wants to hear about them 50 years in a row. So you need to be, I guess, really determined to look for something positive to bring up. And if someone steers in the negative direction, take a stand and redirect things in a good positive mode of conversation. There are things, positive to find. I think it's just a matter of setting your mind to that and, coming up with some topics that are interesting, of the day, or, just family history. So connective conversations are super important. And then, worst come to worst, the kids are always into something new and exciting. So why not, breathe life into the newest members of the family. It's something that we've all lived through, so we can all relate to. Kids are into different activities. So those sorts of conversations are usually positive. So worst come to worst, that's a good mantra. And, worst case scenario, just get on the floor and play with the kids because it's where the fun is.
Those are great tips. And absolutely, I think the best approach here is just going in with some intention, right? If we are planning ahead and we have a couple of, conversation starters in the back of our mind so that we can create those positive conversations, that's going to go a long ways. Just a little preparation makes a huge, huge difference. Now, if you should happen upon a conversation that makes you feel really uncomfortable, it is actually your responsibility to express that. And here's my permission slip to express that in a firm but kind way that does not require you to over-explain yourself. You may excuse yourself to the washroom. Excuse me, I'll be right back. You can say, I would feel more comfortable speaking about something else. You don't need to get into a lot of explanations or details about why you don't want to talk about that thing.
Or this is not conversation for holiday times, and then kind of redirect and introduce something else.
Exactly. You can just say, let's talk about this instead. You may say, this is a challenging conversation for us. Let's shift gears. Let's try on talking about the kids. Let's try on talking about, something uplifting, whatever that case may be. And then that's where you can pull in those conversation starters that you had in the back.
Wow, what a beautiful kitchen you have here. Things like it's just going to go in a different segue. Introduce me to the new construction or, something.
And you don't have to be unkind. You can truly be kind about it and express your boundaries at the same time. I think
you need to be kind about it because you don't want to be the focal point then, bringing stress in, right? So that's why I always tell people you got to cater to your audience. You want to keep it peaceful and you want people to focus on the topic, not on yourself. Yeah. So as a contributor, you're uplifting and encouraging that topic, but you want to focus on something that everyone can relate to and you're not it. So, you want to do a peaceful transition as much as possible. I mean, think about how you would like to be approached if you were bringing up a topic that was uncomfortable, and always flip the script. So I think that's a good way to kind of keep it, just on a positive air.
And if you're struggling to do that, like I said, it's totally okay to excuse yourself, to take a break in the washroom. Just take, 2-3 minutes, take some nice deep breaths, bring
Commercial
yourself
break.
back into a grounded space, prepare yourself, set the intention to come out with a new perspective, and, repeat as often as necessary, because I know some families are extra challenging and they can be tricky to navigate in big family settings. So take care of yourself and take those breaks, recover your peace. Everyone is going to thank you for your effort in doing that, right? Because it's just going to result in a much more peaceful and loving environment, which actually brings us to point number 2, which is exactly the kind of environment that you really do want to create, which is one that's full of peace and love, right? This is what the holidays are intended to be about. So how can we build and foster more peace and love in our holiday interactions? And important here, when I toss the mic back to you to share about how prioritizing our own mental, physical, and emotional well-being can contribute, because obviously we're the only ones that we can actually change, shift, control. How can we, by taking control of ourselves, create more peace and more love in our holiday gatherings?
Well, I think the holidays in general are hectic. And I think some things to keep in mind are the simple things like getting enough sleep. That's one. Nothing breeds more irritation and friction than not being well rested.
Amen.
Tolerance levels are down to the floor.
Yeah.
There's so much expectation. And that's another thing to be adjusted to, is just focus on having a peaceful time. It's kind of like manifesting. So you decide, this is what I'm going to bring to the table. And so I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to eat well. I'm going to sleep well. I'm going to get ready ahead of time, not leave things to the last moment. So that reduces stress right away. Making sure that you're hydrated. And a lot of people, I think, are, drinking a lot. But in my studies, I've come to understand that certain type of hydration is better than others. Having a pH balanced water where your body actually absorbs that is important. A lot of people drink and they think they're drinking a lot, but a lot of the water isn't really doing them much good. So looking into details like that, are you really hydrated? And there's ways to test, the pinch test and things like that. So making sure that you're taking care of yourself on a basic level, so that when you go into battle, you're just in a better place. You're composed and you're settled, and you're, then able to really deal with a lot of things better. And then you can also indulge in, holiday treats and things like that. So you can actively participate in the festivities. I think that's super important.
Yeah. And I think one of the tips that I want to share about this, related to what you just said, is if you are calm, if you are feeling at peace, you are more likely to experience peace. And one thing that I want to share about other people that may create drama, we want to avoid, involving our trauma in the drama, right? So we want to focus on ourselves. That's the key. We're coming up with our peace and our love. That's our responsibility. And now if there are other people which maybe are not so on board with the peaceful holiday theme that you've got going on, one tip that I like to share is that you can remember that they're not you, and you don't have to involve yourself in that. You can actually envision them as though they're just a movie, right? They're a player on the screen. They're putting on a drama, but it ain't your circus and it ain't your monkeys, right? So you don't have to jump into the movie. You can just simply observe it as an independent observer while maintaining your own peace and harmony within. Now, I know this is easier said than done if this is not a practice that you do on the regular. So let's talk about a couple of tips of how you can incorporate feeling more calm and peace in your everyday, so that it does become your baseline, so that it does become your regular habit. Because then when you are faced with challenging situations, such as someone else creating drama that you don't want a part of, you can stand strong in your peace, in your calmness, and not get sucked into the drama. So do you have some favorite practices, Shae, that you want to share on how to maintain, and I'll share some of mine as well, how to maintain this peace and calm on a regular basis, because this is our intended state, to be happy and peaceful and calm and full of joy. And it's the drama just layers on top. And we don't have to take that in. We don't have to take it as our own. We can stay as our natural state of peaceful, joyous, happy, and calm. So what are your favorite practices for remaining Zen for the holidays?
Well, a lot of times I look at where are we, you, me, whoever, and where do we want to go?
Yeah.
And then I look at the people who are already there. So if you want to be successful, you want to be peaceful, you want to be affluent, whatever it happens to be, whatever your goals are, finding people who are already resonating in that place is a good place to look at. How do I act? How do I receive information? How do I respond? So if your goal is to be peaceful, your goal is to be successful, your goal is to be healthy, those people are going to act and react to certain stimuli differently than you might as you're getting there. So taking those skills, in other words, if someone is confident, if they're settled, if they're peaceful, they're not going to worry about what Uncle Bob says. Right?
Just
so you're not going to react. Yeah, exactly. It's not incumbent upon you to let emotional triggers have you go, and join in. So pardon me, come here. This is not that time. So I think it's important to look at, what your goals are and where you're at, and how would a healthy, confident person respond to someone who is just trying to get attention, who's trying to be the center of a conversation, who's used to getting that attention maybe all his life, and now, you don't want to jump into that. So you're not, there was a phrase, is that someone's urgency is not your emergency. You do not have to respond to someone if you don't choose to. So if it's not your type of conversation, if it's not the area that you want to resonate in, it's not your job to teach somebody. I think that's another thing, is that it's not your job to be their teacher. As coaches, we understand you can't lead a horse to water. You cannot. If the horse doesn't want to go, horse is not going to go. So you kind of apply that to everything else. You're not to be everybody's teacher. If they seek counsel from you, if they ask you a question, certainly give your information, what you think will help them, right? But it's not your part to step into that and to guide everybody. So the best thing, as you said, is to walk away. One of the things that is kind of fun about holidays is there's usually clusters of conversations. So you can easily get up and go join someone else's conversation, making a statement without making a statement.
Right.
So come here. I'm sorry, I've got two littles behind me that are deciding now it's playtime. Kaina, come here. Come here. Thank you. I'm just gonna sit on her. So, I think it's important to just look at, how do I want to navigate this? How do I want to behave in this? How do I want to be seen in this? And, it's about not getting yourself involved in somebody else's stuff.
Yeah.
Always remaining peaceful yourself. If nothing else, tips, take three seconds, take a breath.
Yeah.
Is this going to matter in 5 seconds? Is this going to matter when I leave here? Probably not. So don't get yourself involved. And I kind of look at it from this point, is that you only have so much time on this planet.
Yeah.
You only have so much energy. You only have so many resources. Do you want to spend that gold on that thing?
Right. Do you want to spend even 1 minute upset or irritated or whatever?
What could you do with that minute otherwise?
Yeah.
Could you improve somebody's life? Could you have a nice conversation with your cousin Sally and, reconnect? So navigate elsewhere. You're not stuck there.
It's not about bypassing the emotions. We need to feel it to heal it, but we don't need to get stuck in a spiral, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes we need to take those emotions to just a later point in the day, outside of the conversation, so that we can really feel it and heal it and deal with it there. Because sometimes in the middle of a situation is not the right time. to really deal with those emotions, but we want to make sure that we're not repressing them and stuffing them away. We want to resurface them and bring them so that we can actually transmute them, so that we can feel them and let them go. What we resist and what we cling to, when we resist those uncomfortable feelings or upsets or anything like that, if we resist it, we actually hang on to it by nature of our clinging to it. And likewise, we have amazing feelings and we desperately try to hang on to them, but that's not how life goes. And just like the waves behind you, our life is going to have waves. We're going to have good emotions,
ebbs and flows.
Good, quote unquote good, because it's all just our own judgment of it. But we're going to have emotions that feel good to us, that feel uplifting, we'll say, and expansive. And we're going to have some that feel restrictive and constrictive and kind of pulling us down. And these are part of, like you say, the ebb and flow of life. You can't have, life without having some of these things, these waves coming and going. But you're not the waves, right? You are below the surface. You're like the depth of the ocean. And so
it's calm.
You are calm, should you choose to be. And this is the thing, you are the one who gets to choose which waves are you going to allow to affect you. And that's up to you. You can choose not to let some of those waves upset you. That is you standing in your power. That is you empowered to create the experiences that you desire. And one of my favorite tools for getting there and for creating this peaceful and calm state is definitely meditation. And I know a lot of people like, oh, I can't meditate. My mind's too busy.
And you can do that in those quick 3 seconds,
Sister, my mind be like 1,000 miles an hour most of the time. So if I had ever let that busy mind thing tell me that I was meditating wrong or that I couldn't do it, I would not be where I am right now. So even if your meditation is full of your to-do list, but you are trying every now and then, just bring it back. Just bring it back. You are going to develop this muscle of control over that thinking so that you have just the tiniest space, right? All you need is the tiniest moment to actually respond versus react. And so that's, to me, what meditation is about bring yourself back constantly, over and over and over. It's a practice for a reason, to your intended state of being peaceful, happy, joy, all of these good feelings, the things that you really want to feel more and more and more of, because you deserve to, and you get to, because they are your intended state. And so that those big waves crashing over top of you that don't feel good just don't faze you anymore. And so it's not about being perfect at it. It's not about being a master. It's not about sitting quietly for like 4 hours. It's your ability to create that tiny amount of space, just enough where instead of getting sucked into some kind of drama, you can actually respond from this place that you want to be peaceful, you want to be happy, you want to maintain love, you want to exude love. That's what that allows you to do. And so meditation for me has been an amazing practice. And you can't just pull it out in the crisis situations. These are sort of things that you need to be building and working on when times are good. That is actually what allows you the foundation, so that when you're in these moments where you're like, oh my God, holy shit, like I don't know how to deal with this.
It's second nature.
Now it's second nature. Now it's your foundation is just there to support you. And
well,
that
I think
go ahead.
Point though is not having those triggers. In other words, you should be able to go to these holiday events and recognize that someone doesn't have to have any determination over your life. So nothing happens to you unless you give it permission. So it's about going in and remaining peaceful. So kind of going in a meditative state and saying, okay, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. This is how I'm going to present myself. If somebody introduces something that conflicts with that piece of myself, yes, I'm not going to react to it because it's beneath me. It's not worth it. And like you said, in the water where it's peaceful, in the depths, my thing is get a surfboard, ride those waves, enjoy that. Don't let it affect you negatively. You choose how it has, any type of effect on you. So have fun with it, enjoy it, recognize that people are people. People are going to do different things. I find people fascinating.
They are incredibly fascinating.
Especially give me a passive aggressive narcissist. I'll turn him into a pretzel in a minute. But I just love watching people try to convince, like sell themselves, try to convince people of things. And I'll just watch and, just observe. Some people are really bold about it. And I'm always interested in it. So I come from an observant point of view. Is
Yeah.
just let people do their thing.
Right.
And then, just watching people in motion gives you so much information and edification that you can go back and deal with these people in a different way in your own life. This is holiday visiting, but you might have people, your neighbor might be
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. So how do you take notes on that person and then figure out how am I going to not let them affect me? Or if I do need to interact with them, you kind of have the insider scoop, how the mind works, different phraseology that they use, and you can kind of get ahead of, their actions if you need to interact with them. But I just love watching people. So
Yeah.
for me, it's entertainment.
Yeah.
And, I don't have to get involved if I don't want to. I
Yeah.
know myself,
Yeah.
and it's
It's like
like
a
that
movie.
knowing thyself. Yeah. If you know who you are and what you're good at, what good you're doing in the world, those sorts of people and conversation do resonate lower than you anyway. You know it. Why
Yeah.
lower yourself to even engage? That's kind of my mindset.
And the more you do this, because you get better at it by practicing, right? This observing, like, oh, I see you, Uncle Bob, and
Mhm.
I'm not playing, right?
I'm not
So
game to that. Yeah.
I'm just gonna watch from over here and observe what's going down, but I'm not gonna react. I'm going to respond from this calm and peaceful state because that's who I am, right? This is choosing you and choosing your response. And the more that you do this, the more confidence you build, which leads us into point number 3, which is about building confidence. And this
Hmm.
comes from finding your natural state, finding your purpose. And you touched on this before. When you find that thing that you're passionate about, you're doing your mark on the world, the difference that you're making, the legacy you wish to leave, if you will, when you focus on that, everything starts to shift. And I just want to say, people are out there doing the best that they fucking can with the resources and understanding they have. And when you always give
Hmm.
people that benefit of the doubt that they just literally don't know anything different, this is
Hmm.
from their traumas, this is from their experiences or lack of experiences, this is from their emotional maturity or lack thereof, this is from their own experience with boundaries or knowing themselves, or obviously not having boundaries, not knowing themselves. So people are doing the best that they can. And I know someone out there might want to argue with me that no, they're not. But if you actually knew what that person has been through, and you'll never know. This is the
Hmm.
thing. You'll never fucking know all of the things that they have been through, all of the experiences that they have had, because every moment that they have experienced up until now has shaped who they are. So
Hmm.
in this moment, this is the understanding that they have about the world around them. This is the resources within and without that they have built up to respond and deal with the situation. When you come in with love and compassion for people, knowing this is the best they can do right now. And also,
Hmm.
hello, let's talk about the permission that gives us on the flip side. If we give ourselves that same level of compassion, we're going to change the fucking world from the inside out. Because if we can let go of our own hangups and our own
Hmm.
guilt and our own shame and all of these things that actually keep us playing small and keep us stuck and feeling less than we should, which is amazing. If we let that self-compassion just permeate ourselves, now we can go about being authentically, unapologetically ourselves. And this is the path, if you will, to being unconditionally loved and accepted. Because if you're wearing
Hmm.
masks and you're pretending and you're putting on a show and you're people pleasing and you're not setting boundaries and you're letting people walk all over and you don't say no and you say yes and you mean no and all these things, people aren't seeing the real you. They're seeing
Right.
this version of you that you're projecting. And so that leaves you feeling like nobody really gets you, like nobody really loves you for who you are. And nobody really accepts you because, well, they might not if they knew,
But
right?
they don't know who you are, so they can't.
Exactly. So unless we're vulnerable enough, unless we're transparent enough, unless we are willing to risk the biscuit a little bit, right? Risk a little bit of potential pain to actually express ourselves and be our authentic selves out into the real world, we remain at arm's length away from the unconditional love, away from the unconditional acceptance. And there's always going to be this niggling thought. like if they really knew the real me.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way to really truly reach the state of, I feel really truly unconditionally loved and accepted by anyone, you have to put your real self out there, and with the right people. Again, this is tying back into the boundary conversation,
Yep.
because
Yep.
not all the people are ready for the real you, right? And so boundaries, while they are an invitation into your deeper world, those invitations aren't for everyone. And that is okay. And you have to be
Mm-hmm.
okay with those people who aren't a match, who aren't aligned with the real you, to show themselves out. And some of them do so in a showy way, right? Because humans
Mm-hmm.
are fascinating. Humans get triggered and upset by things, and their emotions take control. But you are a beacon of peace and calm.
Mm-hmm.
And so you
If
just
you choose to be.
observe, right? Well, I hope you are now. After taking
Yeah.
some of these tips and implementing some of these practices, you can become more peaceful and more calm, observing the shitstorm, but not
Mm-hmm.
taking part in it, right? And so the more we do this, the more we, build this confidence. And I'd love for you to expand on your thought. You talked about finding your purpose, and I would love for you to expand a little bit more on that, and how taking care of ourselves well actually ties into this, because I don't think that we can live in our purpose if we're not caring for ourselves well.
Well, I think what you express is what a lot of people go through. And to me, it's a lot of mental gymnastics. Um, Being someone of simple means, I was raised in a very intellectual, spiritual environment. I kind of look at things from the root up,
Yeah.
not from the top down. A lot of people come in, this is who I am, or this is what's happened to me, and they don't realize where it's rooted in. So I kind of come from a different perspective, is that anything that's based on a lie is untrue from there forward. So if you're not presenting yourself, your true authentic self, if you're not comfortable with yourself, you have to ask yourself a few questions as to why. What am I hiding? Why am I hiding it? And to whom am I hiding it? So if the people in your inner circle do not accept you for who you are, they're not part of your tribe,
That's just it.
right? So
Yeah.
there's boundaries right there. Is that just because you're familiar with someone, whether it's a marriage partner, it's your siblings, just because you know them doesn't mean they're your people.
Right.
And it's about recognizing that. And, or I take people back to choosing a mate, how to find that person who has, checks all the boxes, but the basic stuff is, do they love you? Do they encourage you? Do they inspire you to be who you are?
Yeah.
Even at the risk of you going off and doing this amazing thing, aside from them, but coming back to them and sharing that exciting information, that's what allows relationships to thrive, is individuality and team effort. So you have to have both of those. If one is stifled, the person ceases to grow. But the people who are supposed to be in your inner tribe by how do they make you feel? Do they allow you to make mistakes and encourage you? Do they allow you to seek out experiences? So coming from that point of view, to me, it's just, simple. Look from the root up. You're fine. And so when I engage with people, often they're telling me the results of choices, the results of experiences, the results of who's influenced them. So let's wipe that away. Let's just look at who you are, where are you gifted and talented, what do you love to share with people, because that's your purpose. And the lovely thing about that is when you have a goal, it's like you're looking down your journey of life and you see that shining thing that you want to do and be. Yes.
Yeah.
When you're focused on that, it's almost like you have bulletproof glass on either side of you. People can be saying blah, 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 and you can't hear them. It's the most blissful, peaceful way to live. Only those who want to walk with you on your journey, encourage you on your journey, see what you can do, those are the people you're going to keep here. Everybody else is at arm's length. They don't matter. So listening to them isn't going to get you anywhere. It's only going to distract you and waste your time. So, taking care of yourself, focusing on yourself without being selfish. Because I
Right.
always tell people life is two simple things. Everything boils down to two simple things. We're here to love and we're here to serve. And if you can figure out how to love yourself and how to accept only good love for yourself, how to love other people through care and service, you've hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
That's why you're here. And then you focus on what do you need to edify to build up that purpose, education, coaching, mentoring, whatever certification. You're on your way. Nothing else will bother you then.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't fit in your path, it's easy to just say no, it's not for me. That's not, that doesn't suit me right now. And that goes with people too. So, taking care of you, your body, your mind, and your spirit, super, super important. So making sure that you don't allow things into your body, into your mind, into your spirit that are not in alignment with your true self. It just simplifies things and makes it easier to just be peaceful, be loving, come from that positive space and to emit that energy, how to recognize, spiritual influence in your life, you know, knowing that you're here for a reason. You're here for a specific reason. And here's the thing, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, it's not going to get done. So you have a responsibility to be your authentic self, to be truly yourself, to do what you're supposed to do. And the treasure hunt is discovering that, is allowing the experience to happen, whatever it happened to be, whether it's in the past, and looking at what did this teach me? What can I glean from this that has allowed me to be intimate with myself in that situation I may not have wanted? I wouldn't have asked for it, but here it is, it happened. So what is the lesson I can learn? What are the tools I can gather that I can then use in the next situation that's kind of sort of like that, but it's not going to hit me as profoundly because I've already done that, got the t-shirt.
Yeah.
I already know a little bit about that. And I use some strengths and I use some weaknesses. I recognize my weaknesses. The next time it's going to allow me to hone that weakness into a strength. So I think it's about embracing everything in the most positive way and taking that as this is part of yourself. It's part of your history, part of your experience, part of what makes you who you are. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Stuff that doesn't work, let go of it. People that don't work, let go of it.
Oh, it's a lot about unlearning, isn't it? It's about releasing those things that don't serve us. We don't need to carry those with us, right?
It can be.
We can take the wisdom from the things that we have been through, and we can release what doesn't serve us, and we can move forward standing in our power, creating from the place, being who we wish to be. And ultimately that's, every step that we take that is in alignment for us, that is authentically us, is going to help us build more and more confidence. It's going to help us shine even brighter. It's going to help us to exude that overflow of love to other people and to the world. And that is how we are ultimately going to change the world, right? Is not by forcing things our way, but through love, through compassion, through accepting other people where they are at, because that is magical. I don't have another word for it. It is just magical.
It gives me chills all the time. When you're connecting with somebody on that love level, you're just resonating, you understand, you accept each other. And to me, that's just such a beautiful thing. And, one of the things I think to keep in mind too, is that how we see people, how we approach people, how we speak to people. I think one thing to keep in mind is imagine that you're speaking to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So everything you give to that person is going to come back to you. So if you're loving and kind, you're going to receive that, right? If
you create your own experience.
Judgy, if you're judgy and you don't accept someone, and again, with boundaries, but if you don't accept, this is who they are and this is what they're doing, I'm only capable of navigating myself around it or into it.
Yeah.
And be peaceful, be loving to that person anyway, even if they don't deserve it, even if they don't accept it. It's what you give out that is going to be returned to you tenfold. So think about it that way. And I think that helps guide us, puts our own boundaries in clear perspective as well.
Absolutely.
This is who I am because this is what I want to receive. I'm going to put that out and that's going to come back to me. So you're planting seeds all along your life. And those are the things that are going to show up, in time. Might be immediately. I have miracles that happen to me all the time. People hang around me long enough, they start, happening to them too. So it's lovely to be able to have, such a positive rapport with people. And that fuels you, it fuels you to keep going. You're on the right path. And I mean, that's what life is, the good stuff of life is all about. So
Yeah,
super important to, to keep those things in mind, be
absolutely.
loving and be kind because it's going to come back. It's going to come back and benefit you.
Yeah. So we want to share very briefly, in case you would like to dive deeper into the conversation about boundaries with either Shae or myself. I have a program called Authenticity Unleashed. It is about bringing that authentic self. It is about getting to know yourself, because if you're at all like me, you might have been through a phase, I call it just a momitis, where you might have forgot who the fuck you are for a hot minute, because sometimes life gets in the way, right? And so we can get wrapped into those identities and those roles and doing the giving and the giving, the giving, the people pleasing, all of these things, forget who we are at the root of it. We are this calm, peace, love. And so to bring us back to that state so that we can now express that love to the external world with a sense of calm and confidence, you might want to check out my program. So you are welcome to send me a message and let me know if you'd like more details on that. And I know Shae has an offer as well that she is going to briefly share with you about her boundary setting offer.
Yeah, I am going to offer a 30-minute session for anybody who's interested in deal breakers and boundaries. And it's the first steps to really understanding, who you are, what you want, what you don't want in your life, who you want and who you don't want in your life,
Yeah.
so that when those things come in, you can accept the things you've already pre-thought, pre-recognized. When something comes in that is really not something you favor in your life, it's easier to say no when it's an intellectual thing, not an emotional thing. So I teach people about thinking and problem solving first, where your wisdom is and all your tools are, so that you can keep your boundaries intact. And it basically becomes second nature. It's just something that is or isn't something you're going to welcome into your life, whether you're actually methodically thinking about it or not. So it's about pre-thought, and it's about setting up those intentions and manifesting and connecting with the goodness in your life, so that when something negative comes in, it's like, no, thank you. And it's very simple, very streamlined. So I
Amazing.
would offer that. You can get in touch with me also through DM for on my page, Shae Regan.
Awesome. And we'll have some more information in the comments below. Thank you so much for sharing this amazing conversation. I hope that if you're watching, I hope that you got at least a couple of practical action steps that you can take forward into this holiday season to really create a peaceful and harmonious, happy holiday. And on that note, sending you so much love, just overflowing, so that you can have an amazing holiday season. Looking forward to connecting again with you all soon. Let's go do some epic shit, shall we?
Yay! Get her done.
Get her done.
And let's have fun.